I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Stephen Romo, in for Savannah Sellers today. And we do begin with that growing crisis at the border. Border officials say unauthorized crossings by migrants are surging again.
You'll remember we saw a record high of more than 10,000 crossings in one day back in May. Then those numbers dipped after the Biden administration put new asylum restrictions into place. Well, this new spike is approaching that all-time daily high, and it is putting a strain on resources in some border communities. NBC News correspondent Guad Venegas joins us now from Eagle Pass, Texas. So, Guad, why after such relative stability are we now seeing this uptick in crossings this week?
Joe, Stephen, good morning. Well, the changes made at the U.S. border don't really affect what's happening in Latin America. So it's not that something specifically happened in Mexico or at the border. It's that people have been making their way north to the United States. If you look at the numbers reported by the United Nations in Panama, that right at the jungle where a lot of the migrants cross to make their way through Mexico, they've already seen more than 300,000 people emerge from the jungle, from the Darien Gap. These are individuals that are trying to make their way north. Now, more than 300,000 alone this year. Last year, the whole year, they had less than 300,000. So it's the largest number of people that they've seen make their way through. What does this mean? This means that we've got larger groups of migrants making their way through Central America in Mexico. Mexico has, of course, been dealing with this issue. And just days before, Joe, the largest train company, freight train company, shut down operations in northern Mexico because they said they had unprecedented numbers of migrants riding those trains to come north. In fact, you can see just right above me, this is one of the bridges that has the trains that come, the freight trains that come from Mexico into the U.S. Yesterday, CBP authorities said that they had shut down some of those rails. We know that some of those trains were halted down in Mexico. So it was a matter of time until new waves or a new mass of migrants arrived here at the U.S.-Mexico border, Joe.
And Guada, you're in Eagle Pass. The city has declared a state of emergency. So what does that actually do? What resources does that free up for officials to handle this?
So, Stephen, when migrants arrive, they turn themselves in this area. This is just one of the areas here in Eagle Pass at the border. When they turn themselves in to federal authorities or taken to a processing center, that's where they begin the asylum-seeking process. Now, if they are allowed to remain in the United States, then they're allowed they're freed essentially in the streets here in Eagle Pass. That's when the city has to use its resources to help them get to the places of their destination, to provide water. And there's, of course, other costs for officers to deal with that influx of migrants, and they need more money for that. So the state of emergency would then make more money available for city resources to help with that humanitarian effort. That's, of course, different from what's happening here because you've got different pieces moving, right? You've got your Border Patrol and CBP officers that are doing the processing. They are the ones that legally detain individuals here and begin that process. And you also have the state using its resources with the National Guard and the state troopers, the Texas Department of Public Safety, which are patrolling the border. This is part of the Lone Star operation that the governor in Texas put into effect. So different pieces moving, state authorities, federal authorities, and local authorities declaring that state of emergency to get more resources.
And Guad, very quickly, facing pressure from within his own party, President Biden is making some changes. Talk about how the administration is responding now.
So the biggest change now is TPS, temporary protective status, offered to Venezuelans that arrived in the United States before the end of July. Now, this is huge because this means that any individual in the United States from Venezuela who was there before the end of July will now be able to apply for a work permit and be in the United States somewhat legally under this temporary protective status. So that will immediately offer some type of we would say legal status for some of the people that cross into the United States illegally. So it'll be a huge change. And the main reason why this was done is because local authorities in different parts of the U.S., especially in New York, wanted an option for a lot of these migrants who have been waiting in shelters. This means a lot of the ones that have been sitting in shelters waiting to go through their asylum process will now be able to ask for work permits and at least find some type of normal day-to-day life while in the United States, Joe.
You can't ignore the fact this is going to be a huge political issue coming up in the next year. All right, Guad Venegas, thank you so much.
And turning now to Washington, where negotiations have once again stalled among House Republicans over the government spending bill.
For the second time this week, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy brought a vote to the floor to advance a military spending bill in that chamber. That vote failed 216 to 212, with 5 hardline Republicans breaking party lines and voting with Democrats against the bill. McCarthy expressed his frustration following the breakdown of those negotiations yesterday.
It's frustrating in the sense that I don't understand why anybody votes against bringing the idea and having the debate. And then you've got all the amendments if you don't like the bill. This is a whole new concept of individuals that just want to burn the whole place down. That doesn't work.
So here's the deal. Congress now has 1 week to find a solution, but House GOP members left town for the weekend and all votes have been canceled until next week. McCarthy says members will get ample notice if any votes are scheduled. We have NBC News congressional correspondent Julie Sirkin with all the details on Capitol Hill, along with NBC News business and data reporter Brian Chung. So, Julie, let's start with you. Speaker McCarthy isn't the only Republican expressing frustration over this spending bill. You've got New York Congressman Mike Lawler, a moderate. He had this to say about the negotiations.
For my colleagues, they have to come to a realization if they're unable or unwilling to govern, others will. There needs to be a realization that you're not going to get everything you want. And just throwing a temper tantrum and stomping your feet, frankly, not only is it wrong, it's just pathetic.
That all, of course, raises the question, could a few Republicans end up working with Democrats to get something passed? Walk us through what happened, Julie, during yesterday's talks that led to the breakdown, and really what is the mood among Republicans right now?
Yeah, who we just heard from was Mike Lawler. He's one of those, we call them Biden 18. They're those vulnerable Republicans in the House. They won districts that President Biden had won, and so they can't afford a government shutdown back home with their constituents. The problem is you have a handful of those conservatives who don't care if the government shut down. I was talking to them yesterday. They said their constituents want them to hold the line on this. And that is one of the dynamics that McCarthy, the speaker, is contending with here, because normally in this situation, you ultimately have lawmakers who come together at the end of the day, even at the 11th hour, the last minute, to try to get something done because they don't want the government to shut down. Of course, it's going to end up costing even more money if it does. But look, yesterday, when we saw this second procedural vote fail on a military bill, this is something that unites Republicans and Democrats, but certainly Republicans have been on the front lines about. That failed. They have nothing else to vote on. They've been going back and forth on top line numbers for a short-term government spending bill. Then they decided we're just going to pass all of our appropriations bills separately. They don't have time for that, though. And so McCarthy canceled the votes despite saying he's going to keep all of them in. They're going to meet again today. Some of the leadership is still around. Some members, like Mike Lawler, like some of those holdouts, have been negotiating late into the night yesterday. We'll see if they could potentially get something together over the weekend, but not looking good.
Deja vu. And Brian, we've seen, of course, huge economic impact from the shutdown and the brink of a shutdown before. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, well, I mean, if we look at historical context, the last government shutdown was at the end of 2018. That lasted into January 2019. It was 35 days, and the estimated impact, according to the Congressional Budget Office, was $11 billion, $3 billion of which was never recovered. So we're talking about a pretty substantial economic hit there, although it's not necessarily large enough to, let's say, for example, tilt us into a recession. Where the impact would be greater felt would be the households of those government workers that would be furloughed. We have to remember that if there is a government shutdown, it's not like every single agency, every single corner of Washington, D.C. is going to be shut down. For the most part, those kind of necessary services, those critical services will still be open, but those more non-essential jobs could end up leading to a lot of furloughs, which in the case of 2018 and 2019 was 300,000 employees. The Fed Chair Jay Powell has said, look, this is not something that's necessarily going to be a big macroeconomic effect, but again, can't discount what this might mean for those government workers that could potentially be out of work during the time that this lasts.
Of course, Julie, that last partial government shutdown was under former President Trump. That one lasted 34 days. So we're hearing from Trump on social media. He's calling for Republicans to continue their holdout over the spending bill. How much influence does it appear he's having over these talks?
Well, a good amount. Look, he talks often with some members of the House Republican Conference, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is one of those holdouts who refuses, who bucked the party line yesterday as well when it comes to that defense bill. And Trump can't help himself but get right in the middle of this, but he also has really nothing to lose. He has no skin in the game here. Any kind of impact on the economy, like Brian just laid out, would only hurt President Biden. Certainly Republicans, though, have taken the blame for shutdowns in the past. And some of those moderates I spoke to expect that this will not bode well politically for them in 2024 either. But Ron DeSantis, the former president's biggest rival, even though he's double digits ahead, he weighed in a couple months ago. He told Republicans to hold firm and not pass anything that would increase spending, that wouldn't decrease it dramatically. You'll remember that Speaker McCarthy already struck a deal with President Biden to keep spending levels at a certain rate. Now some of his members want to go below it, and you hear Trump egging them on. Certainly that is not making things easier for the speaker.
And Brian, let's talk about inflation. Obviously, we've talked about the shutdown, how that could affect it. Also, the Federal Reserve deciding this time around not to raise interest rates, but it's up in the air for November. How does that affect inflation overall?
Yeah, well, I mean, when it comes to the impact of the potential government shutdown on inflation, it's just really hard to model right now. I think the bigger impact would be on the employment side of things, right? I mean, 300,000 employees being furloughed would be really massive to an unemployment rate that at 3.8% is near historic lows. That would be something that, again, as Julie was kind of suggesting, would be a real conundrum for the Biden administration. The Federal Reserve, though, is not going to change policy off of a potential shutdown. It's more likely that they're looking at the confluence of all these other events. You think about a UAW strike that's lasting, that's going into, the beginnings of the first week, and other types of dark horse economic events. Those are things that the Federal Reserve are watching and saying, maybe we need to be a little bit cautious here.
All right. Julie Sirkin, Brian Chung, thank you both.
We have new details this morning about the tragic bus crash that killed 2 people and injured dozens more in New York. The bus was headed to Pennsylvania, packed with students attending a marching band camp. Investigators now believe the accident could have been caused by a faulty front tire. NBC News correspondent Emily Aketa has the latest.
A high school bus ride to band camp suddenly taking a terrifying and deadly turn.
Bus rollover eastbound.
All available manpower is needed for your rescue.
The bus careening off a highway in Orange County, New York, tumbling 50 feet down a ravine and into an embankment, plunging the 40 students and 4 adults it was carrying into chaos.
The kid next to me was covered in blood. I saw blood everywhere.
First responders, including medical evacuation helicopters, rushing to the scene. At least 5 students remain in critical condition this morning, according to officials, and 2 adults died in the accident, including the school's band director, 43-year-old Gina Pelletieri, and retired longtime teacher, 77-year-old Beatrice Ferrari. The 2 women, close friends, chaperoning the trip together.
Their friendship it went beyond teaching.
Ferrari, affectionately known by students as Grandma B, her daughter in utter shock.
She was so passionate about what she did. She loved her students.
Details now emerging about what may have caused the crash.
Preliminary information indicates a failure of a front tire may have been a contributing factor.
The high school students were traveling from Farmingdale on New York's Long Island to Pennsylvania for their annual band camp. The marching band seen here just a week ago, performing their first halftime show of the school year. Patricia Defendini's grandson, who was on board one of the buses, is okay, but waiting for news.
My grandson's friend was one person who was airlifted, so I don't know if he's okay or not.
Edward Hoschler picked up his daughter, a junior who plays the trombone, at a reunification center.
It's surreal. You don't think anything like that's going to happen, but just seeing her. Just seeing her face, nothing a parent wants to go through.
Our thanks to Emily Aketa for that report. NBC News has reached out to the parent company that owns the charter bus, which is listed as satisfactory on the Department of Transportation's website, but we have not yet heard back. The NTSB will be on the scene today to start its investigation.
An update now to the manhunt in Missouri for a convicted sex offender who walked out of a hospital. Well, that search has now come to an end. 45-year-old Tommy Wayne Boyd is seen here being taken into custody by U.S. Marshals in St. Louis Thursday night. He had escaped from a hospital that morning while getting medical treatment there. He's currently in the middle of serving a 30-year sentence for sexually assaulting a child. Meanwhile, in Indiana, the search for an escaped murder suspect is intensifying. 28-year-old Kevin Mason was mistakenly released just 2 days after his arrest because of a faulty records review. Now police are expanding that search to surrounding states. Well, he's been the leader of one of the largest and most controversial media empires in the world, and now he is stepping down.
Yesterday, Rupert Murdoch, the Australian press tycoon who reshaped conservative media, announced plans to step down as chairman of Fox Corp and News Corp. The 92-year-old says he will transition into the role of chairman emeritus of the two corporations. For more, we're joined by Washington Post media reporter Will Sommer. Will, good to have you with us. So take us through this decision, stepping down at 92. That may not be terribly surprising, unless you're Rupert Murdoch. Why is he doing this now?
You know, it is interesting. On one hand, as you said, it's not that surprising because he's 92. On the other, it is a bit of a surprise. I mean, this is a guy who had, up until recently, really presented himself as planning to helm News Corp, into the foreseeable future. So it is a surprise. And so, why he's stepping down, honestly, it seems like he's taken a couple hits lately. I mean, certainly Fox had this mammoth, nearly $1 billion settlement with Dominion Voting Systems over election fraud allegations. There are more lawsuits coming down the pike. He fired Tucker Carlson, which has gotten him a lot of backlash from his traditional supporters. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons, along with his age, for Rupert Murdoch to step down now.
And Will, Lachlan, Rupert's son, he's now taking over and doing so in some pretty uneasy times. There have been the lawsuits concerning the 2020 election and competition from news organizations that are even further to the right from Fox. So what can you tell us about Lachlan, and what will the network look like under his leadership?
Sure. So Lachlan is one of his two sons. And for a while, there was sort of if people remember HBO Succession, there was sort of a Succession-style battle over who would control it between him and the other son, James. But ultimately, Lachlan won. James sort of lost interest in the business. Lachlan is seen as, if anything, more conservative, more right-wing than his father, perhaps a little less strategic. A lot of Fox News's detractors have been looking at this, people who have followed this closely, and said, if anything, this means we're going to have perhaps a more chaotic, more conservative Fox News. Although ultimately, there are so many factors going into it, it's really hard to predict.
It's hard not to think about the show Succession when you're looking at this transition going on right now. So, Will, Rupert Murdoch oversaw this vast expansion of a worldwide media empire that was often at the center of controversy. In your mind, overall, what is his legacy in this business?
I think on one hand, he's certainly one of the greatest media moguls of the 20th going into the 21st century. Really an incredible rise from Australia to just basically sort of, so many outlets in the English-speaking world. On the other hand, I think his critics would say this is a guy who drove conspiracy theories, attacks on democracy, all these things, essentially to make money.
Right. Will Sommer, thank you for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Rob.
Well, the Hollywood writers' strike could be one step closer to a deal this morning. The Writers Guild of America heading back to the bargaining table with the CEOs of several major studios, including our parent company at NBC Universal. Talks ended Thursday without a deal, but they went much longer than expected, giving some people hope that they could be close. In a message to members, WGA leadership called for a show of strength in front of studio lots and offices set for today. The writers have been on strike for almost 5 months, demanding higher pay, larger staff, and protections around the use of AI.
We're tracking the latest on a potential tropical cyclone, which could bring some heavy rainfall to the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, washing out the weekend.
Meteorologist Angie Lastman is here with that good news. Hey, Angie.
Hey there, guys. I sense the sarcasm, I think. But yes, you're exactly right. Potential tropical cyclone 16. It's a mouthful. And all you need to know is the National Hurricane Center basically says, we think this is going to develop. So we give it this name so that we can issue products and watches and warnings. And that's exactly what they've done ahead of the system actually developing into maybe a tropical storm, which it potentially could later this afternoon, hence that name. We've got winds at 50 miles per hour. It is starting to get its act together a little bit. Either way, though, the impacts are not going to change here through at least the next 2 days. We're still going to see that really heavy rain work on shore today for parts of the Carolinas, eventually moving up into portions of the mid-Atlantic and Northeast here over Saturday and even through Sunday. We're going to be talking about this system. But here's the deal today, that rain will work on coastal areas of the Carolinas are going to start to see it first. It'll move up into portions of the mid-Atlantic like Washington, D.C., and eventually the Northeast for tomorrow. But today, the gusty winds, the flood risk will be there with impressive rainfall rates and heavy, heavy rain with some of these tropical downpours working through. We'll also see the issue of high rip current risk and high surf. So obviously a bad weekend for going to the beach, today included. And that goes up to parts of the Northeast as well. That heavy rain is going to spread through on Saturday. We'll have a couple periods of of some drier skies here and there. But for the most part, it's going to be quite unsettled. We could potentially see some strong winds and just some really heavy rain that leads to flooding. Those are going to be our main impacts, along with some coastal issues as far as some storm surge. We'll show you that here in a moment. But there's those tropical storm warnings that are in effect from Cape Fear up through Fenwick Island. We're going to see those lasting. They go into effect later this morning, but they're going to last through the next couple of days. And you can see why. Wind gusts expected 50, even 60 miles per hour in some of the highest spots, a little closer to the coast. So no surprise if there's some down branches, some down power lines. Those are things that we'll see a little farther inland, less wind, but still quite gusty at times. And again, that issue along the coast is going to be there through at least the next couple of days. And the flood threat, this is centered over parts of the Carolinas, of course, and up into places like Virginia Beach. The flood watch is in effect through Saturday, because look at these rainfall totals, 2, 3, 4 inches of rain possible in a lot of spots, but localized amounts up to 7 inches. Again, this is mainly focused across parts of Virginia, the Carolinas, closer to the coast where the center of that system will be. And we've got the storm surge that we'll watch for, too, especially when we're talking around high tide times. Places like Virginia Beach, Kill Devil Hills, stretching down to Morehead City, all 2 to 4 feet. Inland areas, maybe 3 to 5 feet. We'll see some issues with that. Something that you'll watch again through at least the next couple of days. We've also got some strong storms that'll be centered across the middle of the country, so heads up for that. If you're looking for the nice weather on Saturday, it's way out west. A good chunk of the western half of the United States is going to see some really dry skies, some bright skies, and it'll stay that way for Sunday. But unfortunately, still some trouble spots in the middle of the country again on Sunday, and of course the Northeast. So if you live in those spots, Netflix, I don't know. What movie recommendations do you guys have?
I started watching a Hallmark movie last night, of all things.
Oh, so how holiday of you.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, it's a fall one. It's autumnal themed, so yeah.
Do we recommend it, or?
I'm halfway through. We'll
see. Report back.
More next week.
More to come. All right. Appreciate that, Angie.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.